This was a disgrace. This was a rigged trial by a conflicted judge who was corrupt. It's a rigged trial, a disgrace. They wouldn't give us a venue change. We were at 5% or 6% in this district, in this area. This was a rigged, disgraceful trial. But the real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people. And they know what happened here, and everybody knows what happened here. You have a Soros-backed DA and the whole thing. We didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man, and it's okay. I'm fighting for our country. I'm fighting for our Constitution. Our whole country is being rigged right now. This was done by the Biden administration in order to wound or hurt an opponent, a political opponent. And I think it's just a disgrace. And we'll keep fighting. We'll fight till the end, and we'll win, because our country's gone to hell. We don't have the same country anymore. We have a divided mess. We're a nation in decline, serious decline. Millions and millions of people pouring into our country right now from prisons and from mental institutions, terrorists, and they're taking over our country. We have a country that's in big trouble. But this was a rigged decision right from day one, with a conflicted judge who should have never been allowed to try this case, never. And we will fight for our Constitution. This is long from over. Thank you very much.
This is Donald Trump melting down in the aftermath of the news that he is now a convicted felon, found guilty on all 34 felony counts of falsifying business records related to hush money payouts he made to secrete an affair he had with a porn star from the American people. He complains here that he wanted a venue change, even though the crime quite literally happened in New York City. He was at Trump Tower, and yet doesn't think the crime should have been prosecuted in Manhattan. Let me guess, he'd have preferred Oklahoma, right? And of course he goes on to blame Joe Biden. But no matter how many times he insists that Joe Biden is responsible for this prosecution, not only isn't it Biden's prosecution, but Biden's DOJ actually passed on it. The Department of Justice actually could have prosecuted this case, but opted not to. So no, Joe Biden is not prosecuting Donald Trump. Donald Trump is being prosecuted because he, Donald Trump, made the conscious decision to falsify business records, which he knew was a crime, and therefore why he made Michael Cohen do his dirty work for him, by the way, because he wanted to hide an affair that he had from the American people before the election. Which part of that was Joe Biden's fault? Was it Biden's fault that Trump cheated on his wife? Was it Biden's fault that Trump paid her off? Was it Biden's fault that he cooked his books? Was it Biden's fault that he went and repaid Michael Cohen enough to compensate even for his taxes of that payment, to make him whole through a scheme that was literally recorded on stationery? Seriously, if Joe Biden was involved, he should be prosecuted too. But considering he wasn't, maybe we just focus on the people who actually committed the crime. Trump then goes on his usual rant against Judge Merchan, who himself has been the image of objectivity throughout the entirety of this process. If anything, he was actually too lenient on Trump by refusing to incarcerate him despite Donald Trump violating his gag order more than 10 times. Find me any other criminal defendant who could do that and wouldn't have his bond revoked, and I'll eat my words. Also, give me a break that Donald Trump thinks Judge Merchan is corrupt, and yet he's totally fine with Aileen Cannon, who's presiding over his Florida case. Totally fine with the judge who was already rebuked twice by the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals for being too deferential to the defendant. But because she's in the tank for him, suddenly that's fine. Because you see, as far as Donald Trump is concerned, corruption only works one way. If you're not squarely in his corner, then you must be corrupt. Make sense? Yeah, I didn't think so. Although he is right about one thing, that the real verdict will be on November 5th by the people. That's correct. Because even as we await sentencing in this case, remember that it is not on the courts to save us. It's not on the judges or the lawyers or prosecutors. It is our responsibility. It's our responsibility to come in and save ourselves, and the only way to do that is at the ballot box. Remember, Trump can still run for president, and he can even win the presidency even if he's in prison. There is no prohibition in the Constitution against a convicted felon being president or running for president, meaning it's on us. That means we not only turn out ourselves, but we bring our families and friends and neighbors. We are responsible for our circle of people. And considering these elections are won on the margins, what you do in this election could very well mean the difference between a Biden win and a Trump win in November. In terms of next steps for Trump, he'll be sentenced on July 11th, which means we've got about 5 weeks here of Trump's incessant complaining and temper tantrums before we actually find out what's going to happen to him. The punishments could range from probation to prison time. I don't know what Judge Merchan is going to do, but I would note that that if this was any defendant not named Donald Trump, he would almost certainly be in a prison cell. Whether Trump continues to benefit from special treatment, even while he perplexingly presents himself as the perpetual victim, remains to be seen. But hopefully, the judge here has the same degree of courage that the jury had to hand down a sentence that would be handed down to any other convicted felon who just got hit with 34 guilty verdicts. The Biden campaign, for its part, also released a statement. Quote, "In New York today, we saw that no one is above the law. Donald Trump has always mistakenly believed he would never face consequences for breaking the law for his own personal gain, but today's verdict does not change the fact that the American people face a simple reality. There is still only one way to keep Donald Trump out of the Oval Office, at the ballot box. Convicted felon or not, Trump will be the Republican nominee for president. The threat Trump poses to our democracy has never been greater. He is running an increasingly unhinged campaign of revenge and retribution, pledging to be a dictator on day one and calling for our Constitution to be terminated so he can regain and keep power. A second Trump term means chaos, ripping away Americans' freedoms, and fomenting political violence, and the American people will reject it this November." So should Biden continue to hammer away at what just happened today? Absolutely. Because A, remember, he had nothing to do with this verdict. This was handed down by a jury of Trump's peers and brought by the Manhattan District Attorney. And B, it is not only pertinent, but essential that Americans know who Donald Trump is. The fact that he's now a 34-time convicted felon is absolutely fair game in terms of warning the American people about what kind of person awaits them if he wins the election. He may wail about law and order, but the reason we respect law and order in this country is precisely to protect ourselves from criminals like Trump. In the meantime, just know that what you witnessed today was nothing short of a miracle. This was the first time in American history that a former president of the United States, one of the most powerful people on the face of the earth, was held to account by a jury of his peers. I know that so much of our time and energy is spent deriding what feels like such an antiquated system, but while things move slowly, today proved that sometimes they work. Maybe not as fast as we like, maybe not as decisively as we'd like, but they work nonetheless.
The defendant, Donald J. Trump, is guilty of 34 counts of falsifying business records in the first degree to conceal a scheme to corrupt the 2016 election. And while this defendant may be unlike any other in American history, we arrived at this trial and ultimately today at this verdict in the same manner as every other case that comes through the courtroom doors, by following the facts and the law and doing so without fear or favor.
I've got a really exciting announcement. I've written a book. It's called Shameless. This book explores how Republicans have exploited their historical branding while attacking our democracy, how the media has proven itself a willful participant, and how Democrats can learn from this to rebalance the political scales and save our democracy. It has been a lifelong dream of mine to write my own book, and so I'd like to ask you to pre-order it by clicking the link right here on the screen. And if you buy within this pre-order period, your book is going to come with a signed nameplate. As you know, I've never had a single sponsor on my channel. I don't ask for money or anything like that, but if you're looking for a way to support me, this is hands down the best way to do it. So again, follow the link right here on the screen, and thank you from the bottom of my heart for pre-ordering Shameless. And as always, make sure to subscribe to see more of my content.